Croeso, welcome you all to the Corporate Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Monday the 9th of March 2025. 26, sorry. I've written 26 down as well. So. Okay, so we'll go on to item 1, apologies.
Chair, we've got substitution of Councillor Alan Marshall, substituting for Councillor Bill Crease. I no apologies, Chair.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest, including whipping declaration. To receive any declarations and advise members accordingly. No. Okay, thank you. Item 3, urgent matters as agreed by the Chair. Notice of items which, in the opinion of the Chair, should be considered at the meeting as a matter of urgency pursuant to section 100B4 of the Local Government Act 1972. Nothing. Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to item 4, financial summary of the proposal to modernise the Catholic school estate, pages 3 to 14. Okay. On the 27th of January 2026, Flintshire County Council received a notice of motion on the capital financing of the Roman Catholic modernisation scheme. The Deputy Leader of the Council and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Social Value gave a verbal commitment to provide a clear summary of the full anticipated cost of the scheme as outlined in the notice of motion to the Corporate Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee. This report contains the information requested with the notice of motion. Yeah, okay, so who'd like to take that, please?
Chair, can I start?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Claire.
Yeah, well, thank you for that introduction, Chair. You've done my homework for me by reading out the executive summary. So yes, this report is in response to that notice of motion, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to present this information to the committee today. So obviously there's lots of detail in the report, but I'm very grateful to Chris Taylor from the finance team, who is going to take us through that report today. And obviously we will do our best to answer any questions that the committee may have. Diolch yn fawr.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Good afternoon, everyone. So, yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to pick up on it, on the report then, so paragraph 1.07 shows the total estimated cost of the scheme of 55 million, and this is split on an 85-15% basis between Welsh Government for 46.7 million and the Council for 8.2 million. The Council will use potential borrowing to fund this element, and his contribution from borrowing will be built into the current MTFS. The average annual cost over a 50-year period would be 618,000, resulting in an estimated total payment of 30.9 million. The table in paragraph 1.1 shows how the year one cost of borrowing will be built up cumulatively over financial years as the project progresses. Paragraph 1.12 is the estimated potential annual cost for school transport for both the St Anthony's and St David's learners, which is 212,000, with the potential for this to reduce to 92,000 based on pupils registered with the diocese as practicing Catholics. Paragraph 1.22 provides an overall cost summary of the project, the proposal to modernise the estate as of February 26, which is totaling 77.8 million. And finally, on paragraph 1.23, this sets out the revenue impacts of the scheme as the cost per pupil for this area will be rationalised. And this section provides a summary of the current funding and proposed funding allocations based on the capacity of the new school. So that's all I wanted to present, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riverton, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of questions. So the first one is to the Cabinet Member for Finance and Social Value, in whose name this report comes. I'd like to ask him to turn to page 8 of the document pack, paragraph 122. Now, within that section, there is a table giving the cost breakdown. Can I first ask the Cabinet Member, does he stand by the accuracy of the figures in that table?
Yes. The best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I'm struggling to hear.
Sorry. The figures were prepared by my officers. Been through those figures, so to the best of our knowledge, the answer would have to be yes.
Okay. So looking at that figure at the bottom there, the total, the 77.862 million, that is made up by adding the £55 million total capital cost at the top, which is made up of the next two lines, the Welsh Government funding and the council funding, together making the 55 million, the borrowing cost and the transport costs. Now, he will note that the transport costs are for a single year, not for the life of the project, not the recurring transport costs, just 1 year's transport costs. So assuming that we're working out this on a 50-year period, the total figure for the annual transport costs there would be 10.6 million, not 0.2 million. So he's out by 10.4 million pounds. Alternatively, it might be that we're not proposing to provide transport for more than a single year to this school. So could we please have clarity on whether he still has confidence in the figures of that table, or whether there is an error in his sums, or whether whether the proposal is to withdraw all transport at the end of the first year?
It is, as the member has quite clearly said, it is an error. So as I said, it is an error.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In that case, I feel very concerned that what the notice of motion resolved, which is that this committee be presented with the costs, we have still not been presented with accurate costs having considered this item, and so I'd like to invite the Cabinet member to come back and have another
go. Given what the member has revealed and gone through that, I think that the only thing I can really go and say is that he has a very, very good point, and I will come back with the revised cost for the transport.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to Councillor Coggins-Cogan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, off the back of that, I'm not entirely certain if the meeting should continue. If we've already accepted that there is a major error, and I thank Councillor Ibbotson for doing my homework as well. I mean, I have some issues with the figures that have been presented. There are a significant variance to the figures that were presented in the October papers. I mean, I wonder if the chair should exercise his discretion and defer the meeting until we've had the report, which the notice of motion asks for, because otherwise we're going to be debating a report which, you know, for whatever reason, does not contain accurate figures, and that is the whole point of this afternoon's session. Thank you, Chair.
If you'd like to come in again, please.
Certainly, just to assure members, I'll be meeting with the relevant officers to get a revised document out as soon as is reasonably possible and correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, if I may, sorry.
That's right. So, Chair, just given that, I feel just with the suggestion before is the correct place, correct action to take.
To resume again. Yeah. Okay. So we close. Yeah, Chris, would you like to come in and add to that, please?
Yeah, fine hand. I suppose on the basis that it's hard to know what transport costs are going to be beyond year one or two potentially, because numbers could fluctuate significantly. So it does state in there that it is the estimated annual transport costs in the narrative. So at this point, I suppose that's the best figures we've got to go off. And again, in a state that's the high end cost in there, it could potentially be less as well. So it's difficult to forecast what those future costs could be based on different pupil numbers. So I think in the description it just states the annual cost of it.
Okay, Councillor Ibbotson.
Yes, sorry. So My point is, either we think that there ought to be a calculation for annual transport costs in there, or we don't. And I appreciate the difficulty in estimating those. And obviously, it is a very movable feast. But clearly, the decision has been taken that they form part of the total costs of this project and are worth including in the total. And I absolutely agree with that determination that they should be included in here. I don't think anybody would disagree with that determination. But if they're going to be included, then they have to be included on the basis of the estimate for the lifetime of the project, not just a single year. They're either all included or not included. And if they're all included, then yes, that figure is going to be an estimate, but they do need to all be in there. We can't just say, oh, we'll include an estimate for 1 year and the other 49 years. Well, we just won't even imagine what those costs might be. Clearly, there's going to be costs over the lifetime of this school. And so those need to be included.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jones?
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't have been saying that the numbers are incorrect. It was quite clear that it was an estimated annual cost. So even though it's been a summation has been provided of 77.862, it was clear in there that it was a 0.212 on an annual basis. So it probably would have showed, well, not probably, it does show, yes, I understand what Councillor Whitson is saying, but it clearly stated it was an annual cost. And, I'd already put that number in, to be perfectly honest, and I think everybody else probably would have as well. So I don't see the reason to bring this back. I think, if I'm being absolutely blunt, every other number in there is absolute over the 50 years, and you were quite capable of multiplying 0.212, even in the worst case scenario, by 50 to get 10.6, which you did. So I don't think there's any necessity to come back with a new number, because I worked it out, you worked it out, I'm sure most other people just worked it out because it was actually information provided within the report.
Sorry, may I ask for a point of clarity, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, okay, carry on.
I'm grateful to the Deputy Leader for that, because he has pointed out what I was loath to do. I mentioned that the 50-year multiplicative figure would be 10.6 million, but as Chris Taylor said, obviously there's a sort of expectation that there'll be a bit of a trail on pupil numbers. So I was unsure whether the figure of the 212,000 was the annual transport costs estimated as an average over the lifetime of the project, or the first year high-end estimate. Now, the Cabinet member has confirmed that the figure is 10.6 million to go in there, and so the total cost of this school is not 77.862, but 88.2.
Just let Councillor Jones come back to you, please.
So just let me confirm what I said. I said that figure of 212,000 is in there, and it says an annual transport cost. Okay, but actually we anticipate it being lower than that. It could actually be 92,000, which is a more likely figure. Okay, so there's a variable in there already. What I didn't say was that it would be 212 every year. I didn't say that. What I am saying is I made that calculation because that from that table is the only figure that you could have identified it from. It's the only way you could have got 10.6 was multiplying 212, which was provided number, by 50. I know that, but what I wasn't saying it was going to be that every year, because we don't know that figure, do we?
Well, that's exactly my point. In that, Councillor Jones a moment ago was saying that we can carry on with this because we know the figure, because you can just multiply that by 50 and get the 10.6 million. Which implies that if we're going to carry on that basis, then that 10.6 million has to be accurate. Now he's saying, well, no, it's not going to be 10.6 million, which he may very well be right, in which case we need to be told what the accurate figure is. At the moment, we're having two different versions of events from Councillor Jones within the space of 5 minutes, and the committee has not been presented with the accurate estimates by the administration, which is what the motion called for. Either we're going to be provided with accurate estimates and we can continue, or we're going to be provided with oh, well, you can just do these multiplications and it will get you to a figure that may or may not be the best estimate. It has to be one or the other. So does he have confidence that these figures in the table with any multiplier or whatever are right? Or is the best estimate of the administration that it will cost less than £88.2 million for this school that 96% of respondents to the consultation didn't want? Because the cost is going up quite significantly here. And, if we're going to consider it on the basis that it's £88.2 million, and that's a lot higher than the £77 million in the papers. So we, the point of this is to get accurate mathematical numbers on how much this costs. We're being told, oh, well, there's errors in the mathematical numbers. You still haven't had them, but hey, you can do some sums yourself. That'll get you to a wrong answer, but hey, you'll have an answer at least. This is not acceptable. I mean, I paid tribute to the cabinet member for finance who, did the decent thing on this, held his hands up and said, yeah, we'll get you the accurate figures. I mean, that was all it took. I think we were pretty satisfied that was then going to happen and everything would be fine. And then the deputy leader and cabinet member for Growing and Place has managed to come in and say, oh, well, no, you don't need the accurate figures. It's like, but his colleague has just said, yeah, we'll get you them. I mean, what is his issue?
Councillor Everton, I don't think we can predict a yearly travel cost until you've seen the first year take up when the school is open. It's totally impossible. We don't, unless we've got a baseline. How can we predict what the next 49 years will be? It's impossible. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry I don't have anything to add to this debate about figures. I just want to say that I'm upset. I find it distasteful that we are arguing over how much money is spent on children who are our future. Children are priceless. They don't have a cost. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any more speakers? Councillor Coggins-Cogan, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The notice of motion which brought this about under Section D require that future reports to Cabinet, Scrutiny or Council on school reorganisation or major school investment must include within the main report a one-page true cost summary which sets out in plain English the costs. What we've got here, again, are councillors and Cabinet being myopic. It is not about whether we as councillors who are literally paid to sit and read through these reports, add things together, refer things back, as I have done, because the report that we've got today does not match the report that we had 4 months ago, by the way. It's meant to be for the public. I made this exact point at full council when the exact same excuse was used. Oh, but councillor, if you just divide this by 32, add 17, and then sort of get the remainder and add that by 50, blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. The notice of motion is for people to understand it at home. So there's a one-page summary. I have to commend the deputy leader and cabinet member for finance because he has accepted that this does not meet the criteria of the notice of motion, which asked for a true cost summary set out in plain English. This blatantly doesn't do that. It fails at the first hurdle for whatever issue. The fact that we are now arguing over whether it's £212,000 a year or £92,000 a year, whether that's a one-off cost, whether it's a revenue cost, blah, 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 blah. Surely that should say to everyone with a rational mind that that is not plain English and it is not a true cost summary. The entirely sensible proposition is to waste no further time on this meeting this afternoon, to give the officers and the cabinet member a chance to look at the paper, review the issues that have been highlighted and represent it. Surely that is the sensible thing to do. And I'm hesitant to say this, but the cabinet member, the deputy leader and cabinet member for finance, offered his personal assurance that this would be coming forward to cross. He has accepted that this hasn't met his own criteria. So I would ask for his backing that we abandon the meeting, redraft the report and present it again to the next cross. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't, Councillor Cogan, I don't know what we could bring to the next meeting, really. You know, it's written down estimated cost of borrowing. Again, there's a little bit of flexibility in that. Estimated annual transport costs. We can only get a guaranteed figure when we have 12 months of actual usage. So I don't really, you know.
Chair, I agree with what you're saying.
Can't produce.
Sorry, Chair, I agree with what you're saying. The issue is that we've put in that cost of £212,000 and then added it up for, you know, the addition. We've put in a 1 year annual cost against added it to the cost of the entire project. We can't have it both ways. We'd either have to amortize all of those costs for 1 year or add them all up for the total of the 50-year cost. That's the issue. We've got the both things in the same graph, graph. It doesn't work. Also, I mean, as I said, the figures that are in this report do not match the figures that are in the 8th of October report, which I was going to bring up later on. Now, what I can do now is if we abandon this meeting, I'll just email those other figures of concern into the cabinet member, and then they can be drafted into the next report. As it stands, this report does not satisfy the criteria of the notice of motion, which either I or Councillor Parkhurst proposed. I can't remember which one it was. It may have been Councillor Parkhurst. So I'd invite the chair to ask him. And again, I say, I was hesitant to bring this up. The Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance offered his personal assurance on this. This has failed that criteria. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring Councillor Johnson back in.
Thank you. Thank you. Just on the business, the issue of something that is accessible and plain. I think the key feature of this has to be the words plain English. I think when we've gone through putting this, and I do pay tribute to Chris for putting all the work and hard work within to this, is that one of the things I'm very concerned about is that, and have been concerned about, is that the costs of any of our capital programme are shown. That when you go and have a project, it's seen in the context of the costs of similar or other programmes. So I think, given what I've learned with this, bringing this together, it would be unwise to go and say that such a document can be restricted down to 1 page of A4. But it should be very clear and in plain English and kept to the most economic and efficient size possible. That would make some criteria for that. I think it's sometimes the issues are complicated, but the language you go and use to describe them don't necessarily have to be.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Marshall next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got an observation on this. The table 122. Most of that relates to the cost of borrowing, the capital expenditure, but the annual transport costs are actually revenue. So should that really be split out from that and separated in a different table with an explanation of the first year it's 212,000 or 95,000, whatever. So I'm just wondering that maybe that would be a way of being able to proceed with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marshall. Would Christo, would you like to come in and just add to what Councillor Marshall's just spoken about? Thank you.
I suppose in summary, just for the board, the transport figures based on the high end value of current pupils on roll in terms of St. David, St. Anthony. So that's how that's been calculated. That's seen as the high end cost of current pupils that would transfer over. In hindsight, potentially it could come out the table. Like you said, that's ongoing revenue costs that maybe could sit outside it. But potentially it should have shown, well, I suppose if you've shown that over 50 years, it could be overinflated again if you look at the figure in the report based on the number that may be actually expected to get school transport could be as low as 92,000 per year. So perhaps maybe it should have sat separately outside the table, but there's a broad range potentially there that it could have been picked up. And again, it's hard to know what those numbers are going to be in the future.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Councillor Parkhurst.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for letting me come into this. It's quite clear that that what has been presented is not the clear public summary of the full cost as required by the notice of motion, and therefore I agree that this meeting should not continue until that information is clearly presented. I would also point out that the notice of motion said that this must be done before any final decision is reached. And bearing in mind there is a cabinet meeting tomorrow, surely that meeting cannot now go ahead in its planned form because the public have not received the information in a clear, concise summary as required by the notice of motion and as acknowledged by Councillor Paul Johnson, who gave his personal undertaking that this would take place. And I just want to add a further question into the pot. But if there is an overrun of costs, who bears the cost of that? Is 85% of that from Welsh Government or is 100% from Flintshire County Council? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to come back in? No? Okay. Councillor Ibbotson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The table on 1.22, ignoring for a moment the errors in it, is in its effect what was asked for in the notice of motion. It is a simple cumulative figure over the lifetime of the project for the estimated cost to the public purse. And so again, I commend the Cabinet Member for Finance for putting that together. We're now talking about stripping things out so people have to compare and add different tables for it. This that's been presented in 1.22 is, and as I say, putting aside the errors in it, in spirit, exactly what was required in the notice of motion. It is on page 8, notwithstanding, and obviously there's commentary in the report too, which is of value, but it is a simple summary of the total cost for the public, and that is commendable. So I don't think we should be taking things out, but I do think that we should be accurately presenting the total cost estimated over the lifetime of the thing. Now, we've had this discussion about we don't know what the actual school transport figures are going to be until it's operated. I mean, after 1 year, we won't know what it's going to be in year 35 or whatever. This is variable, but the council can, and from the 2 different figures that have been suggested by the deputy leader and cabinet member for, forgive me, what the one that's not Paul Johnson, there's obviously a number of different figures there. The council has clearly done some estimates on what this is going to be like over the lifetime of the project. Those should be presented, and nobody's going to say in 15, 20 years time, when we're in the moving into the sort of second part of the life of this school, oh well, there's variance on the transport figures from what was presented 20 years ago. I mean, the point is that we can make an informed decision with the best estimates available. We and the public have yet to have those best estimates presented to us. We've got partial figures from which we're invited to do some additional maths. And then when we do that additional maths, we're informed that the figure we get to is overinflated, which I can well believe. But in the absence of any other figures, it's not possible to get to an accurate total cost with the best estimate. And that is all that's been asked for. So that is what needs to come back. And look, I mean, as I say, this obviously hasn't been a moment where the administration's covered itself in glory, but I do pay tribute to the Cabinet Member for Finance and Social Value, having taken, in the circumstances, the best, most reasonable position he could have done.
Get to the point, please, now. Okay. Councillor Mully.
Yeah, what I would like to say is that we're trying to delve into something that we really don't know. One thing we do know is that pupil numbers are going to diminish because the birth rate has been lower for many, many years. So on that basis, you've got to accept the fact that the figure that you're given there, if 222, 212, it could diminish itself because we may not need to transport that many children across the county in the long term. So it's all about guesswork and cut it up any way you want. That's what it is, guesswork. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you.
Just one possible solution, because obviously we've got cabinet tomorrow where decisions are being looked and made. If we updated the table verbally today and assumed, make that assumption, or if people have to make the assumption of 212 as the figure as an estimate, multiply with 50 to get the total figure and revise the totals, then that is the same principle as stopping the meeting and restarting, isn't it? And then we can republish the documents afterwards with the right figures in there. Would that not be a potential way
I'd
forward?
like Councillor Jones to speak now. Thank you.
Okay, so we've already established we don't know whether it's 92 or 212 in the first year. We know it's going to go on for 50 years. We don't know what that number is. So Councillor Marshall actually was right. Let's remove the revenue transport cost from that. Or add it underneath the. No, it's not. It's all right shaking your head, Councillor Ibbotson, but the point is we know the capital costs. We know what those capital costs will be. And under that graph, attached to that graph, we can say revenue costs as a minimum would be, let's say, 92,000 times 50 as a maximum, 212 times 50, because that's the best figures we can have. And the reason I'm saying that is because you don't know, if you said to me, how much will a pint of milk cost in 50 years' time? We have no clue how much a pint of milk will cost, but we certainly have no clue on energy costs. And that might be, that might be the determining factor for transport costs in the future. So it is not something which you can hang your hat on. Absolutes are not part of this discussion. But what we can do is, based upon two figures, a bandwidth of 92 to 2012, we can say that the figure is likely to be between these two values over 50 years. Not to be, you can add it into the 50-year program if you want on the capital, but we'll leave that to somebody else to do, because I think the two figures are totally separate. You have a capital total figure and a revenue total figure. They shouldn't be mixed in that way. That's just my own view, and Chris Taylor might have a view on that too.
Chris, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, well, something that could be reduced, like verbally, in terms of like the high end cost, your total will be 88.250. If you took the 92,000 as an annual cost, would be at 82.250. Yeah, I assume when I put the table together, I was trying to obviously capture all the requests within the notice of motion with the transport costs, and that went in. And again, I put it as a single year based on that annual estimate, in as an annual estimate highlighted in there. But as they are both revenue and capital, there is an option where you could take it out and summarize the table as capital, and then have that revenue cost below as well. Either way, I think we're going to get to the same result.
Councillor Ibbotson.
I'm grateful to you for calling on me, Chair, but I think Councillor Coggins-Cogan was first.
Okay, sorry, I missed him. Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I didn't. The other thing I would say is that isn't the only discrepancy in this report. So if we look at the 8th of October report, in there, the cost of the capital cost of a school was 55.5 million. The capital cost of the school in this report is 55 million. So we've lost £500,000 over the course of a couple of months. £500,000 here, £500,000 there. Soon you start talking about real money. This is another element that concerns me. Also, the estimated allocation, primary budget, the estimated secondary budget allocation, both wildly different from the 8th of October report. So, is there a reason for that? Were the figures incorrect on the 8th of October? Are the figures incorrect now? I don't know. There, I think, I mean, even, with the best will in the world, I think we can legitimately say there is a lack of confidence that we are all working off the same figures today, which, directly contravenes the purpose of the notice of motion, was that we could all have one document which said, right, these are the figures. This is what we are asking, the public to fund. This is what we are funding as a council. We're on the same hymn sheet. We do not have that. So surely to goodness, it just makes sense to abandon the meeting, recompile the reports with the correct figures. I will send in my observations to the strategic finance manager. Sorry, I'm looking at Chris, but Chris Taylor doesn't have his job title in, which is a very serious omission. But that just makes sense, surely, that we, instead of spending I don't even know what the time is now. It's okay. So we've been chatting now. Well, I say chatting deliberately, not even debating, for 37 minutes over what the figures are, when we should be debating, is this value for money? Do the communities want this? Should we be paying for this over 50 years? Those are the issues that we should be discussing. Instead, we're discussing a table. So come on, please, 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 can we just agree we'll leave the meeting for today? I will send in my queries to Chris Taylor so he can look at them. And then we can come back with a corrected report that we can all agree is the correct report. And at least then we are debating the politics of it, the public policy of it, and not the figures on a table. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Swash.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to support what Councillor Coggins-Cogan has just said. I mean, he has just exposed the bankruptcy of this meeting because we aren't discussing what we ought to be discussing. It's absolutely clear that the report presented today does not meet the requirements of the notice of motion. And we've spent, as David Coggins-Cogan said, 30 minutes. You've had one deputy leader undermining another deputy leader. You've had a member of the coalition describe an £80 million investment in a school as guesswork, as if that's somehow reassuring to the people of Flintshire. And now we've got Councillor Jones sort of redrafting the report on the fly in the meeting. I mean, it's absolutely laughable.
Councillor Jones.
What I'm not doing is changing on the fly. What I'm trying to do with this meeting is take into consideration what Councillor Coggins-Cogan has said and Councillor Ibbotson. I think they're both valid, they're both correct. I calculated it as well, but I think, as Chris Taylor said, it is possible to show the capital costs in a single table, with a narrative that says that the revenue cost and they should be as separate, and to estimate on current values, because that's all we've got, what it would mean to that value. Now that the 55 million and the loss of the £500,000, I think Chris would probably be able to explain that in more depth, but I still think we can, it's not on the fly, it's trying to find this middle ground so that we can end this meeting with an agreement on what should be there and what would satisfy both views. So it's not that I'm doing it on the fly, I'm trying to find some middle ground. Chris, can you explain the Councillor Coggins-Cogan information from the 8th of October?
Yeah, in relation to the scheme, I think it's been reported 55 million. It should have been 55 and a half, based on the initial feasibility study. Just to go back to Councillor Parker's question around anything that goes over, well, that's still funded on an 15% basis. So the council will pick up anything over on a 15% cost basis between the two. And again, I suppose this is still at the first phase, and as it's worked through, the cost summary of the scheme will become more accurate as as it moves through the different design and development stages.
Okay, thank you.
Chair,
Okay.
sorry to interrupt. Could I just ask Chris Taylor to repeat his answer to me? Sorry, I didn't quite get which was the correct figure. Was it the one in the 8th of March or the one in the 8th of October, or is today the correct figure? Sorry.
The correct figure will be within the report of the 50 and the 8th of March. Sorry, 8th of October. That's a more accurate figure. I think it's just been rounded at the £55 million for the report.
Thank you very much, Chair, for that. Thank you, Chris. So can I just say that that's another issue then, isn't it? So that the figure in the previous meeting is a more accurate reflection of the true cost. So again, there's just it's another issue. Can I ask the Chair to perhaps could we ask either the monitoring officer or the chief executive's advice on this? Because I do think that this meeting it's becoming increasingly redundant because we are all operating on different figures. We don't know what we're talking about, as in we can't agree on what the correct figures are. I think this is too important. I mean, if I'm going to lose the argument on this and this reorganization goes ahead, I at least want to know what I've lost the argument on, not that we had a meeting and we got lost in the weeds. So I would really welcome the advice from either the monitoring officer or the chief executive on whether they think that the previous 42 minutes is an accurate reflection of the notice of motion that was passed by council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You've just had a reply from the financial person. I don't see where the irregularities are really. Information is based on the best of the knowledge at that moment in time.
He's just said that the figure that was accurate was in the 8th of October figure is a more accurate reflection of the figure than the figure in this report today. So again, I would, this is what I'm saying, that like I said, 500,000 there, 500,000 here, soon we start talking about real money. We've already got potentially a discrepancy of 10.6 million. Now there's an extra 500,000 on top of that. There were other figures in here which I do not understand because they differ wildly from the figures on the 8th of October. Now, I assume that the figures in today's report that we're discussing today are correct. But that's really thrown me. So we are operating on different figures. I understand it's going to be a burden on the officers to have to set up another meeting or to roll this into the next CROSC. But surely the sensible thing is that we all have the same figures in front of us to make a decision.
Okay. I think we're going to have to close it down. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's correct.
We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.